Episode of Fire and Flair. This is the season finale. I can't believe it. The last episode of the year. I know we're all super busy with the holidays, and I'm glad that I saved this one for the season finale and to wrap up this new journey of the podcast coming out this year. And so it's going to be very vulnerable, raw, authentic, everything. I really hope that people can relate to it, as always with any episode, but this one in particular is super deep. And I think that what we're going to discuss, a lot of people go through. And so I'm just really excited. And I have Kelsey back on. So we did the social media episode, and she's obviously going to be perfect because we just have deep, vulnerable conversations all the time. So I'm just really excited. And so we are going to be discussing relationships, like navigating relationships as an adult, whether it's with family, friends, romantically, with ourselves. And then also I wanted to touch on being an empath, because Kelsey and I are both true empaths, and she is the only person that I've ever met that truly I feel I can say is an empath. Like, people can have empathic qualities or have empathy, but to be a true empath is so different. The journey you go on, the traumatic things you face, and so it's just nice to be able to connect with somebody and relate to them in that way. And so definitely wanted to touch on that as well, but we're going to go ahead and get started. And so one thing I wanted to mention, this topic for this podcast first came up with the couple that I met on the plane a year ago when I was flying to Arizona. And so I asked them, I said, are there any topics you'd be interested in hearing about on a podcast? And she said specifically navigating relationships with people close to you, because that can be very difficult. Like, it's such a core part of our life and who we are. And so I think it's being talked about a lot more in today's day and age. Mm-hmm. Sorry, Kelsey, I'm going to let you join.
Hi.
Kelsey's here.
Lots have changed since last time I was on this podcast.
I know, this was
I'm excited.
6 months ago, back in April.
Yep.
So yeah, lots of changes have happened, but it's super great. And Kelsey is just truly living her best life, and I'm so proud and happy of her. We're actually chilling on the couch drinking mimosas, looking at the great city view, and I feel like we kind of had similar timelines, like our traumatic events that we've gone through these last couple years, the self-discovery journey, and so it's not for the faint of heart, but that's also why this episode feels super special to me and to have you on. But you would say, obviously, that, or agree, that like navigating relationships can be so difficult, and it's just like there's so much that that I feel like as a society wasn't talked about or we didn't know. Yeah. Like toxic people, narcissists, establishing boundaries, like all of that.
Yeah, and everything with mental health, like what you said earlier, in today's day and age, I think there's such a difference generationally too. On like there's names to things now. There's names to behaviors that take place, and it's made it easier for us to do the research on our end and realize, okay, we're not crazy and we're not the only ones that have the same thoughts or feel this way. We tend to gaslight ourselves, which obviously we'll get into gaslighting, but we make ourselves think that we are too emotional, or we're thinking too much about it, we're overreacting. And really, if your intuition is telling you that something's up, then something's usually up, and you should be able to have that proper reaction to whatever is taking place, and vice versa with the person in the relationship too.
Yeah, exactly. I think I catch myself gaslighting myself all the time now that I'm aware of it and I know what it is. And I just feel like we're always making ourselves feel guilty for feeling feelings.
Yeah.
And that's part of the reason why we don't feel our feelings, is because we're always telling ourselves you shouldn't feel this way, or for whatever reason, you know what I mean? And so
Right.
it's like enough is enough already. Like we have to be able to actually feel our feelings and let them pass and validate them. Like
Right.
that's very important.
Yeah. And actually sitting with them too
Oh,
is
yeah.
huge, because there's so many behaviors that take place when you don't sit with your feelings that I've been guilty of before. And actually going through what you're going through and growing through that is like crucial to having a good relationship with yourself, and then putting that out into the relationships that you pursue.
Yeah, definitely, because it all goes back to you. Like, you can only find happiness within. You are only going to attract positive, healthy relationships if you're okay internally. And we do distract ourselves all the time. I mean, as a society, we're constantly on the go, but we also distract ourselves because it's so easy to. It's habitual. Everybody has gone through really hard things in life, and we just don't realize how much we want to get away from it. And it can be anything, whether someone perceives it as unhealthy or not. It can be smoking, drugs, alcohol, just working all the time, exercising. Like, it just, there's so many.
Yeah, that's a big one too.
Yeah, like there's so many things. Like for me, I will habitually clean and work and distract myself, and like I don't stop moving.
Yeah, like meditation is not my thing at all.
It is so hard.
It is so hard for me, and I find more peace in like reading a book or journaling or doing something, but those are all great things to do, but I always have to be stimulated, because it's just sometimes sitting there and like processing things, and that goes for so many other people. Like meditation is not easy.
You have to practice. Like you literally have to, even if you start with 1 or 2 minutes, if that's what it takes. Like for me, I can maybe do 15 max, and sometimes I even struggle with that, because I'm like, my mind is just going, and I'm like, okay, like I'm opening my eyes, like today's too much, like I can't even just focus for 15 minutes. Other times it's a little bit easier, but like there's people that can meditate for 30 minutes to an hour, and you're like, how? But it is like the most beneficial thing that you can do. That's why like monks and Buddhists do it. And I find in life, like as life goes on, it's always the best things for us are the hardest.
True. That's so true. Like self-care is actually so difficult. And like self-care, like surface level self-care, like putting a mask on and spending a night in with yourself, and like doing things that have like some sort of reward at the end. Whereas like self-care and making decisions for yourself that you don't necessarily want to make, like not the decision that your heart maybe wants to go with, but you know is best for you in the present day, in the future day. Those are things that are, again, going back to relationships. Like self-care is cutting off people that are draining you or drowning you, you know, and that's not easy. Whether it's family, friends, intimate, it's difficult to make those decisions for yourself. And same with even like people that suffer with addiction and, you know, giving up alcohol or drugs or anything like that. It's like, that's painful self-care, but it's crucial. It's necessary.
Yeah, we all find different ways of how we make ourselves feel better. Sometimes it's self-care versus self-soothing. Sometimes it's healthy habits versus unhealthy, and we all have them. It's finding that balance, and obviously trying to have more of the healthy ones versus the unhealthy ones. And like the podcast I had with Becca, I feel so many different forms and layers of self-care. Like it could go to just treating yourself to a coffee or a face mask, but so much deeper and harder, like you said, cutting out toxic people and really making those decisions that you know you are supposed to make but don't want to.
I think it's all about being uncomfortable too, self-care. Like I think it's pushing yourself so that you can expand like mentally and even like self-sufficiently, like putting yourself in uncomfortable situations, taking risks that are good for yourself, like switching a job.
Yes.
You know, it's things like that are kind of unpredictable at times, or doesn't even have to be something that big. It could be like taking a new class with people that you don't know. starting school, stuff like that's totally could be intimidating and completely out of your comfort zone, but in order to grow, it's totally necessary.
Absolutely. I'm glad you brought that up because that is another form of self-care, is having to push yourself outside your comfort zone
Mm-hmm.
and be willing to like give yourself new opportunities,
Mm-hmm.
because I am always somebody who wants to step outside my comfort zone. I never want to be stagnant, whether it's with work or relationship, myself. Like there's so much to explore, and you
Mm-hmm.
just will find so much more satisfaction in life when you do step outside your comfort zone and you push yourself, and it gets easier. Like the more you do it, it gets
Mm-hmm.
easier. But for some people who maybe have stayed in their lane or their comfort zone for so long, it can seem so daunting and scary to make that first step.
Yeah.
But I agree, that is a great form of self-care and one that people definitely need to do more often. So I want to start first with touching on an empath, because I brought that up in the beginning of the episode. And so I have said it on the podcast before that I'm an empath. And Kelsey, with everything that you've been going through, like, would you say I was the one who kind of told you that, or did you like always feel that way?
Yes, you were the one that I really had a first conversation with, like deep diving conversation that was like, holy shit, like we have the same thought processes in so many ways when it comes to people and relationships and whatnot because we're empaths. I actually heard the term for the first time from Nikki Heaton because she always talks about how she's an empath and she's just posted about it, and I'm like, oh wow, I feel the same way. I literally feed off of people's energy, and like I have to stop myself from switching my energy to match everybody else's and just actually be myself at all times. But it's a habit of mine that can be a good thing, and also I feel like can be a negative thing. So it's hard. It's like something that you have to be aware of and control.
Yeah, that's the thing with being an empath, is it's like we go so long without realizing we are one, probably either until something traumatic happens, which I find is more often the case, or just as we get older and somehow we're exposed to it. But yeah, it's interesting because, like I said, just I just, with discovering more of what an empath is in myself, like I saw it in you. Like just once we started hanging out and becoming closer, like I just felt like we were so relatable. And once again, the pattern app that I bring up every episode, you can run bonds with friends and it'll tell you like how similar or different you are. But like when I ran the bond between you and I, like it did say like we have one of the strongest bonds that friends can have, and I truly believe that is because we're both empathic.
Right.
You know, it's a very rare, strong bond. So
well, because it's like I can feel the energy that you're also an empath. Like it's hard. There's no other way for me to explain it really besides like when we started like becoming really close. It was just this. Oh, you feel the same way that I do in so many scenarios. And it has everything to do with energy, too.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Like, I just think we've always felt safe in each other's energy. We could, we relate to each other so much. We were always mature for our age. We have the connection with dance. And so, yeah, it's always just kind of been there. But, yeah, I don't know. I'm glad that I was kind of able to make you understand more, like, listen, you're an empath. That's really important and, like, a central part to who you are, and explore that. And what's crazy and, like, what I didn't know is being an empath actually is kind of like, what do you call that? Like a trait to, like, a spiritual journey, or, like, tapping into your intuition, or even psychic abilities, like different gifts. And so definitely tap into that. Like, I'm trying to figure that out more for myself. And I think that the more that you pay attention to it, the more in tune you get. You know, like I have very vivid dreams.
Me too.
Yeah, I know you do too.
It's interesting that you went into the spirituality part of it, because I think that being an empath also has a lot to do with your intuition just being so strong, and like a bit of clairvoyancy in a way. Like you feel when things are going to happen, when something's going to go wrong or something's going to go right. Like it's just like dreams that you have that come true, deja vu. No, they're all real and they're there. And again, it goes back to energy. And I feel like when you brought up realizing that you're an empath, it's like, wow, I wish I had that information when I was younger.
Exactly.
Like I wish I knew so that I understood, because not only does it go into a spiritual aspect of things, but it also goes into your relationships, because certain people that are super toxic feed off of empaths, because that's every characteristic of a human being that somebody who's a narcissist thrives off of, you know? So using, like, going back to, like, okay, there's names to things, like there's terms for everything. Like,
Yeah.
knowing these terms back then would have been more helpful, just to be aware of characteristic traits that I have that I couldn't quite understand. And, like, especially when it comes to being a people pleaser and stuff like that,
Mm-hmm.
that all comes from having empathy for others and knowing how to set your boundaries at a younger age, and having awareness of, like, what the definition of everything is that has to do with being an empath, and also just mental health in general, I think is, like, makes it more proactive moving forward with the people that you surround yourself with in your life.
Yeah, definitely. And that's the hard thing with being an empath is the balance of, okay, I can put myself in other people's shoes and I'm highly sensitive, but I can't people please. I have to establish those boundaries. I have to see the red flags and know when someone's toxic. And that's why I say that nobody, like, for so many empaths, it's like, I don't know, like, you almost have to go on this journey and go through traumatic things in order to know that you are one and to then change and grow as a person. Because I remember we had a conversation about it a couple weeks ago, and you're like, I don't want to be an empath. This sucks. Like,
it sucks.
Yeah,
That's
like
why I was
sometimes
like,
it truly sucks because it's like, why am I always feeling like I'm the giver, I'm taken advantage of, I'm not appreciated, I'm hurt by people, you know? But I think that it gets better. I truly do. I think that every empath has a turning point. Once we understand what we are, what we've been through, the red flags, it's a turning point, and now we can use being an empath as a strength and see where the good will come from it.
What is it they say that an educated empath is like a narcissist's worst nightmare?
Oh, yeah.
So that's what it is when empaths realize that they need to set boundaries. And it goes, I think, with codependency also, like just knowing when you need to set boundaries, and like when you are, like, I can tell when somebody's lying, you know, like I can tell when somebody's not in a good mood. I can tell, like, I can always feel what other people are feeling. And
it makes it hard to not want to accommodate them. Like,
exactly,
I feel uncomfortable.
but that's a boundary you have to set. So
Yeah.
you're not responsible for how that person feels, and that's something that empaths that don't realize what the term empath even means, or that they even are one, they struggle with, because you don't set this boundary of, you're not responsible for other people's feelings, for how other people feel in whatever situation. Of course, like, you know, don't be a piece of shit. Don't be like a trash human being that's like making them feel a certain way, but like, you are not responsible for constantly making somebody feel better. Like, I don't, and it could be anybody. It could be my mom, or it could be an acquaintance at a party. And you're not responsible for people pleasing anybody, you know? And other people are not doing that in return. Like, it's not like, and then the resentment comes in.
Oh,
if
yes.
you're constantly feeling like you have to people please others and be like the mom or take care of others, and it's like, okay, then you start to resent the people that don't go out of their way for you.
Exactly.
But really, it's not their responsibility to do that, and it wasn't yours in the first place either.
Exactly. That's what's so hard is, like, for me, the thing I find with being an empath, and what my therapist told me, is you have to be able to give without expectation. Like, we're always going to want to give and be a giver. That's never going to go away. And trying to fight that is only going to cause more, I don't know, just it's just not going to be good, because we're going against something that's inherently us. So it's finding the balance of, like, giving. Like, I'm helping somebody, I'm giving to them because I want to.
Right.
But if they don't do something in return, like, I have to manage my expectations, because we can't expect people to be like us. And I think that was always the biggest struggle for me, is like just managing my expectations and knowing, like, okay, I want to be a giver, but I need to have boundaries and just know I'm giving from my heart without expecting anything in return.
Exactly.
So that's the hardest part for sure. And so this episode's going to be filled with so many quotes that I find, because I find so many from Instagram, but they're extremely helpful, because there's so much out there now about mental health and narcissists and gaslighting in relationships. And so I'll just, like, save things and then incorporate them. But, you know, sometimes empaths are called HSPs, highly sensitive people. That's, like, another term I've seen. And so it says highly sensitive people feel things so deeply, not just emotions, but intentions, vibes, judgments, lies, and truths. But the problem is, I feel like, and I don't know if you can relate to this, is I feel like okay, I have this ability, but I feel like I'm constantly undermined, or I was made to feel like my emotions and my feelings were invalidated to the
Right.
point that I couldn't trust myself.
Exactly. And then you're gaslighting yourself
Yeah.
because other people are gaslighting you.
And like a big struggle for empaths too is attaching self-worth through validation from others.
Exactly.
It all goes
It's an
hand in
issue.
hand. The people pleasing, the root cause, it's
Resentment.
crazy.
Yeah.
It just
It's
that's
a
why I
cycle.
say
It's a
it's a
vicious
cycle,
cycle.
and everybody has a journey. Like, it's so true. So yeah, we habitually put ourselves on the back burner, and we're a solver, healer, fixer, etc. So for me, like, it's weird because I was told from several people I was an empath in the last couple years, but sometimes I didn't really think anything of it, or like until I was self-aware of it, I kind of brushed it off. And so a psychic that I had seen a couple years ago told me that I was very empathic. I'm like, okay, whatever, like, again, brushed it off. I think, I guess just like reading random things online is kind of where I started to be like, okay, this is what I am. And then Raven, who was on the podcast, like, she can see aura colors. And so she says, usually she'll see blue and pink on me. Blue is an empath color, that is a healer color, that's a calming color. So it makes sense. And then one time in therapy, I had a breakdown, and I just like, I will never forget it. I was sitting on the couch, like, crying, and I said to my therapist, I always feel like I'm on the outside looking in. And she was like, that is because you're an empath.
That's such a amazing way to put it. Like, being on the outside looking in.
Yes, it was like the most clarifying fucking moment of my life. Like, yeah, it's been reinforced to me through different people. Which has been helpful, and I'm glad that you now are aware of it and can use this in your journey that you're on right now. So let's see, what else was I gonna say? Oh, well, even like, so an example that I wanted to give, because I'm becoming more in tune with it. So a couple weeks ago, walked into the crystal store, and immediately I thought of you, and I was like, Kelsey needs a crystal. And it was weird because I'm like, I don't know, like, I just thought of you immediately. I got you the rose quartz, which is good for self-love, universal love, whatever. It's just a very positive crystal. And I hadn't talked to you that week, and then when I did see you, it was like, wow, you actually really needed that positive energy fucking crystal. Like, it was insane.
It was like you knew.
It's crazy.
Was like you knew that something, like, she's going through something right now.
And I'm so glad that I did it. Like, in the moment, I was like, okay, I'm just gonna go with it. Like, I'm not really sure if I'm being like weird or dramatic, or if she's even gonna like it, but I'm just glad I did.
I love it.
Yeah,
I love it. It brought me so much. Like, it obviously, Thanksgiving just passed, and like the number one thing that I felt thankful for this year was how much support I have in so many different directions, especially coming from you. Yeah. Because you feel it with me, and like, again, that's like a boundary thing too, you know, like, you always feel things for the people that you care about, like, whether they're hurt or sad or happy, you know, you associate with it. But it's been great having you this year, knowing that you're there for me, you know, like, and you're able to relate, you're able to sit there and say, like, you know, it's okay that you're feeling those things, and process them and whatnot, and do what you need to do to self-discover and self-heal. And receiving a rose quartz from you was just something that was like, it just brought me peace.
Yeah. Well, I'm so happy, and I'm glad. I'm so thankful for our friendship, and like I said, just having somebody that I relate to so much, that's a great friend. And I truly believe that this year, like, we got close and we came into each other's lives for a reason. Like, it's crazy. So yeah, I'm so happy for you. I feel like we're just entering a new chapter, like, that's so good for us, like, individually, and what we've been through in self-growth. And another thing that I wanted to bring up is, with being an empath, is that I feel like we gotten, and again, I don't know if this becomes, my God, I can't talk, if this stems from like a subconscious level and the people pleasing, but it's like, we learn to dim our light for other people. Like, being an empath, we like to see the light in other people. Like, we want to make them feel special, but it's like, it came at a cost. It was like, we were constantly dimming our light and like putting others before us and making them feel special when we are a light.
And compromising ourselves, which is bullshit. Like, looking back, you know, I had two, you know, friendship, like a friendship and a relationship that I cut out this past year that have helped me completely fucking blossom into who I am. And like, it's crazy to see the difference and it makes me sad for that person, because it's like, that version of me was not me. It was me walking on eggshells. It was me dimming my light, like you said.
Yeah.
Wondering every day if I was going to be enough for somebody else. Like, are you kidding me? Like, it's just complete bullshit, because it's like, no, like, why should I have to step back to make somebody else feel comfortable? And where does that come? Like, that's your problem. That's like a reflection of your internal issues that you're not addressing or taking accountability for, that I'm now carrying for you.
Exactly.
It's complete bullshit.
No, it is. And there's so many different emotions that come with looking back. Like, once you are very self-aware and you start establishing boundaries as an empath, it's great. But then the other part of that is you look back and you're like, you go through so many emotions of like anger and sadness for yourself and just frustration. Like, you want to go back, you want to tell people what you wish you could have said to them and change things, but you can't. And so it's a grieving process.
Yeah, no, you will never be able to change those people either. Like, that's
exactly.
like, you're just going to be waiting for this moment that they're going to be good to you, and they're not going to be good to you. They're not capable of realizing what they're doing, and that's totally on them. Like, why should you give your energy and your life and your time and like the fucking badass person that you are to somebody who makes you feel like you're less all the time? You know?
It's like, it's not okay. Like, it upsets me that there are people out there like that, and I'm realizing more and more, like, hurt people. And I have the perfect quote, because it says, sometimes your light may trigger people because it shines on the shadow work they refuse to do, and instead of looking at it, they project their self-judgment onto you.
Preach.
Or they're jealous, or it's just something within them that they just want to steal your light. They take advantage, whatever. It's
projection.
Just,
it's all projection. And like, as an empath, you have to dissociate yourself from that and not blame yourself, not carry the weight all the time for other people. It's not your responsibility. And if somebody is making you feel like shit, or you have an intuition that they're not good to you, or they're not good for you, or they're making your body feel a certain way, like, that's something that is huge to me. Is I listen to my body so much when I'm around certain people, and if somebody makes me feel like I want to like crouch in and like hide, or I just feel triggered, like literally physically in any way, then it's like, that's not my problem. That's not mine to fix. And that's something as an empath that you don't have to accommodate for. You don't have to like be a different person so that you don't feel that feeling because they're making you feel that way. Like, dissociate yourself from it. It has nothing to do with you. It's not personal. Like, know when something resonates with you and when it doesn't, and like remove yourself from it. Instead of feeling like you're responsible for it, you know?
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, it all goes back to the root of, like, it's just so much more, I guess, eye-opening once you are aware of that, because like you said, listen to your intuition, listen to your nervous system. If you feel nervous or uncomfortable or like dread or any of those feelings when you're
walking on eggshells.
Yeah, walking on eggshells, like you can't be yourself, like you're tiptoeing, like, no. Listen to your nervous system and your intuition around people. And I am so glad that I do not do that now, because it is literally, as time goes on, it gets easier to spot. Like, immediately I'm like, oh, that person sucks. Like, I don't like their vibe. I don't like their energy. They're probably wouldn't relate to them at all.
Right.
Like, they're very surface level. And so it's just so nice to be able to have that clarity now. And, you know, I'm sure you feel the same. And so this quote, what I'm about to say, it kind of fucks me up, just given everything in my past. It says, people will try to tell you who you are, and if you don't take the time to get to know yourself, you might believe them.
Oh.
Like, I was like, what?
Yeah, it goes along with, like, when people, say bad things or, like, are mean to you, you start to believe them. Like,
I believe them in an instant, and it's fucked up. Like, why do I believe that? Immediately. Like, I won't even, like, say anything back to them when I should and be like, fuck you, you're a piece of shit. Instead, I'm like so shocked by what they said, and then I'm like, oh, it must be fucking true. Like, what is wrong with me?
I'm laughing because I've had scenarios and I've done the same thing where, like, I should be like go fuck yourself
right.
and completely go off on them. But, like, I'm actually sitting there like, oh my gosh,
this person
I am those things.
Actually, like, said this
and
to
who
me.
Are you
and
to say,
yeah.
like, you know what like, why do I care?
We just believe what everyone says, and it's so terrible because it's like, no, we're not those things. Like, mm-hmm. I know who I am. You can think that all you want, but like,
and again, it's a projection. It's not you. You know, like, what was the quote that you just said, that like people like get threatened by other people's light and whatnot? Like, it's not you. It's their own issue with their own insecurities that they're not taking accountability for. So again, you're not responsible for making them feel comfortable.
Right.
You know?
And I feel like they sense that. They sense that we're just such sweet.
That will take it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Like, we're sweet people and we are givers. Like, they know that, but then they also sense that low self-esteem. So it's like a fucking just recipe for disaster when we get that person that's a bully that will make us feel like shit. And then they say whatever the fuck they want to us, and it's terrible. And you're like, how could you say those things to somebody?
But as soon as you stand up for yourself, you're the crazy one.
Oh, yeah, of course.
You're toxic. Like, you're the one that's like...
How could you say that?
Yeah.
Like, that's what they would say.
And it's like, as soon as I started treating you the way you treat me, you didn't like it.
Exactly.
And that's, like, to a T what I have discovered is, like, as soon as I set boundaries and I stopped tolerating things that were said to me or ways that I was treated, and I started giving the same treatment in return, then it's like, I'm somehow the bad person in this equation. You know, it's totally
when you flip the
it's
script,
like, don't make me question my reality. Don't, like, I was good to you. You know, like, empaths have this way of being so empathetic, like, being there for somebody unconditionally and taking on demons from other people and relating, you know, like, so deeply. And people are vampires to that. They
oh my God,
feed
energy
off of
vampires.
That. And as soon as you turn around and again set that boundary and, like, stop allowing them to take as much energy from you as you have been allowing them to take, then it's like, well, what's wrong with you? And it's all like, it all just ties together.
It does. And it makes me angry because, like I said, it's these people, they sensed what they sensed in us and then just went out of their way to be bullies or make us feel like shit. And I binge watched the 4th season of Selling Sunset.
Oh my gosh, I haven't started it yet.
Oh,
but
it's so good. 10 episodes in a day, so, you know, normal. But I don't know, for people that watch the show, it's very, like, catty girl drama, like The Hills, basically. And, of course, so actually, this podcast that I listen to, it's Mystic Michaela, and so she is like psychic, empath, or reader, all the things. She's been on a lot of celebrity podcasts, and so she'll always do like an episode on, you know, the spiritual stuff. So she will, like, on her Instagram, she'll find, like, she'll go through random celebrities and be like, oh, they're this aura color because of this. And so, like, Chrishell who is my favorite. Like, I just immediately loved her. She is the same. So, like, there's a lot of blue and pink aura on her.
She's totally an empath.
Yeah, like, I do find that from her. Like, I don't know her, but through the TV, I just sense, like, she's just such a sweet, down-to-earth, genuine person. And then you have Christine, who is the bully. She's the villain. Like, part of me likes her, but also I'm like, but what you're doing is not okay. And so, like,
I admire her confidence. Like, so
exactly.
Much,
well, and that's the thing is I feel like the bullies and the narcissists are always so fucking confident, and they go out of their way to make everybody not feel confident.
Feel less.
Yeah,
like they're
feel
the alpha.
less.
And they make it very clear that they're the alpha.
And I feel like that is why Chrishell and Christine had the most, like, friction and such a tumultuous relationship, is because it's like Chrishell has this light and this, again, being such a nice, sweet person, and it just triggers Christine for whatever reason. And so, I don't know, like, they, like, throughout the entire show and, like, even in the new season, Chrishell talks about how Christine has basically, like, kind of traumatized or, like, tortured her. Not tortured. What is the word they used? I don't even know. But basically that. And so it just, I don't know, for me, it, like, put things into perspective. And I'm curious, like, what other celebrities out there are empathic?
That's an interesting question.
Yeah, I just happen to know Chrishell specifically because of that Mystic Michaela account. But yeah, listen to her podcast. It's super good. Okay, so there's this website called Loner Wolf that I found, and it's very spiritual, and I love it because I feel like it has given me a lot of clarity in this journey. Specifically though about this specific article about being an empath and just always feeling like you're on the outside looking in. And so it was really interesting the explanation they gave, because it basically said like in this lifetime with being an empath, like it's obviously a journey to like a spiritual awakening, but also like our I think we gain the most satisfaction from doing something that like genuinely feeds our soul, that's fulfilling. And so that may look like something different, whether it's being like a nurse, a teacher, a healer, but in some way we have to like find that fulfillment. Volunteering, like whether it's through our work. And so like I've really been wanting to volunteer, whether it's at like an animal shelter or, I've done Feed My Starving Children, but I think for me, that was something I didn't realize and why I always struggled with my job. And like, okay, I'm not getting satisfaction. I'm not happy. I'm unfulfilled because like for my soul, like for me to feel any fulfillment or happiness, like I need to give in a way that is truly rewarding.
And so feel like you make a difference.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like and it comes with like this existential crisis, which I've definitely had. Like I am like, I need to find my purpose in life, and so I don't know when that will come or what it is, but that's been like super important to me. And so like I don't know if you feel the same, but like, and it even talks in this article about like we see and feel life so much differently. Like we don't want to be in the rat race necessarily. Like we don't want to just have materialistic items. Like my friends have referred to me as like a free spirit because I just see and feel the world so differently than other people.
Right. So I attach to my purpose so severely, like so going to being an empath or having codependent tendencies, mine associates with my job, with what I do, with like waking up every morning and feeling like I'm making a difference somehow, some way. When I lost my job in 2020 due to COVID, it was like, it was nice to have a break, of course, but it was just torture to me because it felt like, what am I doing? I'm furniture. Like that's how it felt. And I'm shaming myself for it, like and you shouldn't be shaming yourself for it. I mean, everybody goes through shit. Obviously 2020 was horrible. So people lost their jobs and it was hard to get a job. And I now am at such an amazing place with my career. It's where I've always wanted to be. It's my dream. But getting there was always like so incredibly hard on myself. And I have to be careful not to attach myself to my job as like my sole purpose in life. Like that's it. Otherwise I'm worthless, because it's so degrading it's self-destruction. It's self-destruction for myself, So I totally understand what you're saying when it comes to having a purpose and like that being a part of self-care, waking up every day feeling like you are providing something. But I have this issue where I need to be careful with like if I'm not constantly over-functioning and achieving something, like that's okay. And I'm not less of a person because I am not engaging in that,
Exactly. And it's so cathartic to meet somebody who is just the same exact way as me. And I think that we're both Enneagram 3, the achiever. And I took that test so many times because I just needed to make sure, and I was kind of between a 1 or a 3, and then finally it was like 3, 3, 3, and like I just feel so like I match with that. And like same with you, like we've always been mature and hardworking, but yeah, it is like this weird need to just constantly achieve and be doing things, but then when we achieve it, we're not even satisfied. It's like, well, what's the next thing? Right. And it's like, wait, that's actually really fucking toxic.
It's
and
so
like
toxic.
Not good.
It's so toxic. Yeah. It's toxic for ourselves.
Right.
It's toxic for our relationship with ourselves, because it's like, and I don't know, I think that this is something that just goes back to like, ever since I was a kid, it was always like, okay, on to the next. Like, what can you be doing more of that will be an accomplishment? Okay, next accomplishment.
Yeah, like I have to feel productive, because if I'm not doing something, I feel like I'm wasting my life. I'm not doing anything. Like
and if it's not perfect, then that's also a problem.
Oh yeah, perfectionism.
So perfectionism comes in, and like even a little bit of OCD. Like I get too detailed with things. I get too, like, you know, I miss one little thing and I'll beat myself up for it for the rest of the day. Like,
Yes.
you know, anxiety comes in. And it just ties too much with, like, you know, you are not, your value is so much more than, like, your job.
Would you say you're a perfectionist?
100%.
Yeah, I could see it.
Like,
that's probably something we definitely both struggle with. Well, like, even I'm laughing because on Halloween we were, like, getting ready and we literally looked so good. And I don't care if I sound conceited because I've gone so much in my life not being confident. Like, we looked good.
We looked great.
Yeah, like, we had a photo shoot. It was amazing. Like, our outfits were banging. You know, we genuinely looked good. But sometimes we don't always feel that way. Like, beforehand, we were like, I don't know, like, you were
like, we need to get out of this lighting.
Yeah, you're like, it was just, like, crickets. And I'm like, for, like, 10 minutes.
We're
I'm like,
absolutely fucking ridiculous.
What is she doing in there? And you were, like, taking pictures, and you're like, oh, I'm like, Kelsey, you look great. Let's go. I'm like, we have to leave. Like, yeah, like, we will literally look in the mirror, nitpick every little fucking thing, and be like, oh, well, I look great, but, like, this one thing, like, I want to change, but I can't, or why is this? Like, it was just so bad.
It's exhausting.
I'm like, exactly. It's so fucking exhausting. I'm like, why am I like this? Like, this is not okay. It's not okay.
Right. I think it comes with, like, the security you have with yourself, too. You know, like, your self-confidence also, but perfectionism definitely ties into it because I think that, like, being an achiever and always feeling like there's more that you could be doing. Do you ever have moments that you are resting and you're like, I'm such a terrible person for being unproductive right now? Like, I will sit on the couch for 2 hours and I will be like, ugh, like, I'm so worthless.
Yeah, literally.
And it's
every
like,
day.
No, it's okay to rest. It's okay to not be cleaning, not be running errands, not be, like, the simplest things. And I think, like, that's something huge too, is with anxiety, you can be an over-functioning person or an under-functioning person. I am so over-functioning.
Oh,
like,
my God,
I am
me too.
constantly like, okay, next client that I can book for hair. Next, like, restock that I can do. Next, like, anything. Like, I'll pull up my computer and what emails can I go through to get that out of the way. And it's great. It's good work ethic. You know, it's, like, nice to have those qualities, but it's also good to realize that, like, you're human. And, you know, us getting ready for Halloween, it's like we could sit here and stare at the mirror for hours and hours on end about what we wish we could do. Like, oh, I wish my ass looked better in this outfit. I wish that I didn't have a wrinkle in my forehead. Like, literally anything that you could sit there and pick at. And everybody does it, you know. I guess you can get into body shaming too, or, like, body image. It's like everybody can sit there and pick apart something about themselves that they wish that they could change, but that's not realistic. Like, I do want to have perfect, you know.
Yeah, I want to have an episode specifically talking about the beauty industry, social media, Instagram filters, like, how it's always been there, but, like, it's just changed over the years with technology and what we have now. And, like, you know, I had my episode with Lindsay talking about how it's just so goddamn hard for especially women to just be okay in your body, to just be okay, like, accept yourself as you are. Like, and that goes across so many levels, like, whether it's who you are as a person, what your body looks like, what your face looks like, just truly accepting every part of you is probably the most difficult thing that we all go through. But it's like, how does one actually get to that point? Like, will we ever? Is it impossible?
We will never, no. And that's something too that I think you just need to come to peace with and, like, set a boundary for yourself, is that there will always, and that's good that there's always something that you're like, okay, I want to improve. You know, it's good to improve, but to obsess over it and to be a perfectionist is exhausting, because it's like, you will never be perfect.
Well, yeah, there's no such thing, but, like,
you will never be perfect at your job. Your body will never be perfect. Your skin will never be perfect. Your hair will never be perfect. Like, there's always going to be something that makes you feel like, oh, well, I could change this, well, I could change that, and you become so obsessed with it that you lose yourself in it, you know?
Yeah, and my goal is to just at some point, maybe, if this is ever possible, if I can ever meet somebody who is just so content with, like, everything about themselves, whether it's who they are as a person, their job, their looks, their personality, like, and that was something that I think we both struggled with, was like we can't accept ourselves as we are.
I
and
think
we
that
let
has
people,
a lot to do with traumatic experiences
that
also.
too. We let people invalidate us and make us feel like shit, and then we believe it, and again it becomes this cycle. And like, yeah, we're just so very much the same. And I am really like, I haven't been going to therapy the past couple months, but when I do, this root of perfectionism that I still struggle with, it's gotta stop.
It's shameful.
Yeah.
So therapy, I love therapy. Fucking love it. Something that like my therapist always tells me is you are so shameful towards yourself. You self-shame.
Mm-hmm.
And you trauma shame. You know, like you sit there and beat yourself up for...
We self-reject ourselves. Like, I'm reading this self-help book. We literally reject ourselves.
But it's for me, it's not as much like I reject. I'm more so just, I mean, I guess so. Like, it's like I look back on, so like trauma, like trauma shaming is what it's called, is like when you beat yourself up for the things that you've allowed to happen to you in your life. But I think going back to like this self-discovery of, okay, I'm an empath and these are the things that I struggle with, and like I need to set boundaries and whatnot. Like, that's not shameful. Those experiences that helped you get to that point were necessary, clearly, you know, because otherwise you wouldn't have done the work to figure out what it was why you allowed people to treat you a certain way,
mm-hmm.
why you allowed certain behaviors or abuse to be present in your life, and what you can do moving forward to fix that. That's not something to be shameful of, but that's something that I've struggled with, is sitting there saying, because I'm a perfectionist, how the fuck could I let somebody do that to me? Or how could I be so stupid? Or how could I have not seen or not been smarter? Or, you know, why was I so naive?
Because we think we can fix it. Like, we're always hoping it gets better. And, like,
Right.
I experienced a relationship that was so similar. Like, I felt for the person being an empath. As a perfectionist, I thought I truly could make things better. I wanted to fix it. I thought that, you know, if we did X, Y, and Z, we could get to that point, like, over time. So, yeah, it's just so, like...
It really is a cycle. Yeah. Because, like you said...
And how do you break it? How, like, when you are a perfectionist and it is so ingrained into... Well, and that's what I asked Becca. Like, okay, are people born this way? Is this something that's learned behavior over time? Is this, like, a self-soothing thing? And she literally said that it stems from trauma.
Trauma. It stems from learned behavior, totally. It's whatever you dealt with. And, like, I had an amazing childhood. I also had very high expectations growing up. And I'm thankful for them in so many ways. Like, I'm grateful for being pushed and having people in my life that saw potential in me and wanted me to reach that. But now it's to a point where it's just over functioning. Now it's that's my responsibility. I have to do the work now to look at that and say, okay, it's okay to take a break. It's okay if this didn't work out the way that you wanted it to. Even with relationships, that then it turns into, well, I need to fix everything. Well, I need to be the one that like brings everybody together, that makes everything okay. I'm the glue, you know,
exactly.
And anything that goes wrong is my responsibility. And really, you know, you're clearly lacking boundaries at that point, and dissociating yourself from, you know, having this push your entire life of, you know, here's this pedestal, or like, here's what you can be, so get there. But don't become so obsessed with that, and like, don't feel like you're also externally responsible for everything that goes on around you. Like, there's things that you can't control. You can't control other people's behaviors or reactions. So whatever you've gone through, whether it was trauma, whether it was not trauma, like either way, it's like you are responsible for how you react to it. So even as an empath, it's something that you need to register with yourself that, okay, it's great that you want to be a healer and a fixer, but also that's not good for your mental health, and that's not your responsibility. And you cannot then in turn become resentful towards people that aren't healers, aren't fixers, you know?
Exactly.
So it's like a balance, and it's taking accountability for things that you've been through and not reacting in ways that are not in tune with others, pretty much, because you're not responsible for what you've gone through, but you're responsible for how you react to it.
Well, yeah, that's very true. The reaction part, they do say that. I've read a lot of quotes, and I just wonder if a lot of empaths like feel the same with us, where they have this perfectionistic tendency, or if that's just a form of trauma that some empaths develop. Maybe other empaths develop different like ways of coping. For us, it's being overachieving and being a perfectionist. Like I have high functioning anxiety, so I don't know, that could probably manifest in other ways, but like for us specifically, like our trauma and like it tying into being an empath was the people pleasing, fixer, overachiever, overstimulation, never moving, shaming ourselves. Like I don't know, it's just like I said, it's just so rewarding to like finally meet someone that I can relate to on so many different levels and not feel crazy for feeling how I'm feeling. And like
it's like a huge concept. Obviously, Brene Brown is like
oh, I remember
the
now.
queen of shaming, like knowing everything about that.
I have a hard time accepting, like acceptance in general. Like it's so hard. Like I don't know. I feel like I just obviously I'm an overthinker and I am so sensitive and sometimes I take things very personally. But like it's so hard for me to like accept something and move on. Like I will dwell. I will think about it and still get upset. Like it's just so hard for me to accept something and move on.
Okay, so I have a question. Is it things that you have a hard time accepting about yourself or about external situations? Like for me, I don't dwell on external situations. I mean, obviously if it was like something very impactful with a certain relationship, then sure. I mean, everything takes time to get over, but I am somebody that's very like, I'll let things go very quick. But when it comes to yourself, like if you make a mistake, if you are not where you want to be, do you dwell on that?
I think I do both because I definitely do it about myself 100%, like beating myself up. The thing with me is like I have such a good memory, which is a double-edged sword because on one end I remember the good times so vividly, but on the other hand, I will just remember stupid shit that like why does my brain want to like attach to this and very traumatic bad things or bad conversations or when people treated me wrong, I can tell you the exact not the exact day, but the fucking month, year it happened. Like I just have such a good memory in that way. And so that's why I think it's hard for me to move on is because it's like my brain will just keep replaying it. Like it doesn't let go of the memory and the attachment.
Yeah, I have that too.
Do you have a really good memory?
Yeah, certain situations. I think more, again, going back to more impactful situations that were like severely harmful to myself. That I will, but I think that goes to like holding a grudge, maybe like with certain.
Oh yeah, I'm a grudge holder for sure.
I'm not a grudge holder. I am like too much of not a grudge holder, which again, boundary. Something that I've had to set for myself is I need to know when enough is enough. But I'm somebody that like I will pick and choose my battles.
Yeah, that's good.
It is good sometimes. Like sometimes I'll like.
Just in the sense of like you're able, I guess, to compartmentalize and leave something in the past and just like accept it for what it is and move on.
And not
like,
judge. Yeah.
Yeah, like I can't do that. Like if somebody's hurt me or like done me wrong, like my brain fixates on it and it doesn't let it go and I forever like hate that person.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm different where I don't fixate.
Maybe that's my Scorpio rising.
I don't fixate on things. But once it's repetitive over and over, that's when I will be like, okay, I have to face the truth here that you suck pretty much. But otherwise, like I will let things go. And I like that about myself to an extent because I'm very like, I could get in a fight at a bar with someone and I'll get over it in 2 seconds. Like, I guess it depends on the situation.
Yeah.
But
you don't seem like someone that will like hold a grudge or wants that tension or conflict.
But you know what it is? It's when people take accountability that I don't hold a grudge. It's when people come back like mature adults that they should be and say, hey, I reacted inappropriately or that was not fair to you and I apologize. And that's when I'm like, okay, good. Swept under the rug.
Exactly.
And sometimes it's good that I do that and sometimes like I have to remember to like pay attention to whether or not people are genuine. Are they taking accountability or are they saying, oh, I'm sorry if I made you feel this way?
I'm sorry, but...
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry, but you did this and I reacted this way because you did this. Yeah, go fuck yourself. Like that's bullshit. But I am so good about like, hey, I'm sorry did not handle that well, whatever. I'm cool. We're moving on. I don't care. But sometimes it can be to a fault. Like in the past, and I've gotten better at this now, but in the past, I would take bullshit apologies. I'm sorry if I made you feel this way,
Yeah. Yeah.
And
so would we consider that a bullshit apology if someone goes, I'm sorry that I made you feel this way?
If or but are two red flag words. If somebody upset you and they're like, I'm sorry if I made you... No, you did make me feel this way. So I'm sorry that I made you feel this way.
Exactly. I'm sorry I did this.
And you can have an explanation, but no excuses either. Like, I get it. Like, people have their down times. Like, I make mistakes, clearly. I react in ways that I shouldn't react sometimes. But it's not hard to just say, I mean, I guess it's hard for some people, but for me, it's not, to just come up and say, like, hey, I apologize. I reacted that way. It was because I was feeling this way and blah, blah, blah. But, like, that's on me. And I'm sorry that I made you feel bad. And can we move on? You know, like, I will be careful to watch myself next time. And that's, like, so meaningful to me when somebody can say, this was not fair to you.
Yeah, exactly.
And I take it, I own it, and I hope you can forgive me. Mm-hmm. I will forgive you.
Yeah,
you know, like, that's the thing. Is, like, if you say, this is something that I'm accountable for, then I, like, respect you so much more, But if you kind of brush under the rug, well, yeah, sorry, but you did this, and it's like, okay, fine. Like, I'm not going to tolerate if somebody's
they say that being able to apologize and admit you're wrong is a form of intelligence or emotional intelligence.
Totally.
And some people, like, for me, like, if somebody is like, well, you upset me, or, like, you did this, I'm sorry. I have, but I don't really ever recall a time where I was like, well, I'm sorry, but, or, like, my apology was, like, not genuine or just bullshit.
Don't apologize if it's not genuine. If you don't understand what you're apologizing for, like, if somebody pissed you off in return, then say, okay, then let's have a conversation about it. Because I'm upset because you did this, and you're upset because I did this, so let's talk it out. Because I don't feel like I have a reason to apologize right now.
Yeah, it's the validation of someone's feelings, and, like, so many people actually don't even know how to validate feelings by even just genuinely apologizing. They really have no way of even knowing how to do that, which is sad, because then, like you said, they'll come up with a bullshit apology, and it's like, just validate someone's fucking feelings. Just say, I'm sorry, like, I did not mean to make you feel that way, that was not my intention. Like, it's just not hard to fucking say you're sorry and admit that you're wrong.
And it's so much easier to just, like, come to that conclusion, or to just have that conversation. Like, again, if you're not understanding why the other person is upset, then saying, let's have a conversation about it and let's lash it out, pretty much, is so much easier to then come to a understanding. And maybe you won't come to an understanding, and that's the understanding, like, maybe it's like you agree to disagree, and then from there you decide if the relationship is worth moving forward or not. But if you can sit there and empathize for someone,
right,
and listen to them, and not just, like, listen to respond, but, like, actually listen to their perspective, then and you realize, okay, yeah, maybe I didn't respond the best way. That's growth. Like, that's emotional intelligence entirely.
Yeah, it's communication, and literally nobody knows how to communicate these days.
It's so much easier to just say, like, okay, yeah, you're upset, and I validate why you're upset because I did not handle this properly, and I apologize for that.
Yeah.
And then maybe vice versa. Like, but otherwise it turns into this, one person then becomes feeling like they feel like they're responsible for the other person's feelings, and it can become this toxic dynamic if there's not accountability, and communication, and, like, just fucking empathy. And, like, that's the good thing about being an empath is I feel like I'm often able to sit there and resolve a situation easier.
Exactly, because we don't, like, we're able to just, like, if we've ever hurt somebody, it is so easy for us to be like, I'm so sorry, mm-hmm. I didn't mean to make you feel that way. We're genuine about it. Like, we don't want to hurt anybody, so we're just immediately, okay, like, I'm very sorry.
But I think that can be toxic with an empath too, is, like, we're scared of people.
Well, yeah, that too.
We're scared of people being angry with us or disappointing people so much that it's like, oh my God, I'm sorry. And it's like, no, don't. But that's why I said don't apologize if it's not genuine either.
Yeah. No, we're just able, like, if we're in a situation where we hurt someone's feelings or did something, like, it's so easy for us to just apologize, mm-hmm. and, like we say, empathize and, like, validate someone's feelings, where I feel like a lot of times, more often than not, people have trouble doing that. Like, we don't even know how to say, like, give a genuine apology sometimes. It's
which then leads to the bullshit apologies. Like, I'm sorry if I made you feel
right,
this way.
exactly.
I'm sorry
because,
that
you know,
feel
it
this
all
way,
comes down to
you did
people's
this.
ego and pride too,
Exactly.
and the feeling like they feel like they're not wrong. They can't be, like, I don't know. It's weird. It all stems from, and that's why I go back to, like, soul versus ego, and operating from your soul is just such a better way to live. And the thing, and I said this before we started the episode, and it was like very, I don't know, one of those statements that's eye-opening, but with that podcast I listened to specifically for empaths, it said that narcissists basically in this lifetime have abandoned their soul. Like, they are operating strictly from ego, which is why they are so obsessed with maintaining an image and having their ego validated and fed, and just take. It's all about money, power. That is the level that they operate from, and that is why they are so fucking toxic.
And control.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just, it's crazy.
Ooh, I can get into that one.